The garbage truck driver thought it was just another Monday morning, until he saw the woman's hand sticking out of the dumpster. What detectives discovered about her identity would expose a deadly secret in the city's wealthiest neighborhood. What started as a routine murder investigation would unravel a web of infidelity, blackmail, and cold-blooded murder that reached into the heart of high society. Phoenix, Arizona, March 8, 2021. Danny Rodriguez had been driving garbage trucks for 12 years. Monday mornings were always the worst. Weekend trash piled high, dumpsters overflowing, people throwing away things they shouldn't. But as he approached the dumpster behind Sunset Mall, something caught his eye that made his blood freeze. A woman's hand, pale and lifeless, protruding from beneath black garbage bags. Danny slammed on the brakes and grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Truck 47. I need police and paramedics at Sunset Mall rear parking lot. I've got a body in the dumpster." Within minutes, the area was swarming with police cruisers and crime scene technicians. Detective Sarah Martinez arrived shortly after, her 15 years of homicide experience telling her this wasn't going to be a simple case. The victim was a Hispanic woman, approximately 35 years old, with no identification. She'd been dead for roughly 24 hours, and the body showed signs of blunt force trauma to the head. Someone had beaten her to death, then dumped her like garbage. No purse, no wallet, no jewelry, crime scene investigator Tim Wells reported. Whoever did this stripped her of anything that could identify her. But they'd missed something. Hidden in the woman's sock was a small brass key with Ashworth Estate engraved on it. Martinez recognized the name immediately. The Ashworth family owned half the real estate in Phoenix's most exclusive neighborhood, Paradise Valley. If this woman worked for them, it would explain why someone wanted her identity hidden. The Ashworth mansion sat on 5 acres of manicured gardens and fountains. Detective Martinez approached the front gate and pressed the intercom button. A woman's voice answered, cultured and slightly nervous. "This is Detective Martinez with Phoenix PD. I need to speak with someone regarding a possible employee identification." The gate buzzed open. Martinez drove up the winding driveway, noting the security cameras positioned every 50 feet. Whatever happened to their employee, the Ashworths would have known about it. Victoria Ashworth met her at the front door. She was 42, blonde, expensively dressed, and clearly anxious about the police visit. Her husband Richard stood behind her, tall, distinguished, and wearing a $1,000 suit despite it being a Monday morning. "Officers, what can we help you with?" Richard asked, his tone measured and careful. Martinez showed them the key. "We found this on a murder victim. Does this belong to someone who works here?" Victoria's face went white. That's Maria's key. Maria Santos. She's our housekeeper." "When did you last see Ms. Santos?" "Saturday evening," Victoria said quickly. "She finished her work and left around 6 p.m. She usually has Sundays off." Martinez studied both of them carefully. Victoria was clearly shaken, but Richard seemed almost relieved to learn it was just the housekeeper who was dead. "We'll need to see her employment records and speak with anyone else who knew her," Martinez said. As she gathered information about Maria Santos, Martinez noticed something odd about the family dynamics. Victoria barely looked at her husband, and when she did, there was fear in her eyes. Richard, meanwhile, kept checking his phone and seemed eager to end the conversation. Maria had worked for the family for 3 years. No criminal record, no known enemies, and according to Victoria, she was trustworthy and reliable. But Martinez's instincts told her there was more to this story. "I'd like to look at Maria's work areas," Martinez said. They led her through the house to a small apartment above the garage where Maria had lived. It was neat, sparse, but Martinez noticed something interesting on the dresser, a small notebook filled with dates and times written in Spanish. Martinez, fluent in Spanish from her childhood, read the entries carefully. They were odd, notes about Senora with the man again, and Senor Richard gone, visitor stays late. The final entry, dated 2 days before Maria's murder, simply read, "I cannot stay quiet anymore. This is wrong." The pieces were starting to form a picture, but Martinez needed more evidence. She decided to establish surveillance on the Ashworth house to see if the family was hiding anything. From her unmarked car parked down the street, Martinez watched the house for 3 days. Richard left every morning at 8 for his real estate office. Victoria rarely left the house, but on Wednesday afternoon, Martinez observed something that changed everything. A silver BMW pulled into the Ashworth driveway at 2 p.m. The driver was a man in his 40s, athletic build, wearing expensive casual clothes. He entered through the side door, not the front entrance a legitimate visitor would use. Martinez ran the license plate. The car belonged to Marcus Thompson, a prominent Phoenix attorney and the Ashworth's neighbor. He was also married, with 2 teenage children. The affair was now obvious, but Martinez needed to understand how Maria's discovery of it had led to murder. She continued surveillance over the next week, documenting the pattern. Marcus Thompson visited the Ashworth house every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon when Richard was at the office. The visits lasted approximately 2 hours, and both Victoria and Marcus were careful to avoid being seen together in public areas of the property. On the following Thursday, Martinez positioned herself with a telephoto lens and captured photos of Thompson arriving. As he got out of his car, she noticed something that made her pulse quicken, a bulge under his jacket consistent with a concealed firearm. Marcus Thompson was armed. That evening, Martinez ran a complete background check on Thompson. He had a concealed carry permit and owned several registered firearms. More importantly, he had a reputation as a ruthless attorney who didn't hesitate to destroy people who opposed him. The motive was becoming clear. Maria had discovered the affair and threatened to expose it. For Victoria, exposure would mean divorce and losing half of the Ashworth fortune. For Marcus, it would mean losing his marriage, his children, and his legal reputation. Together, they had decided Maria Santos had to die. Martinez knew she needed more evidence to make arrests. She decided to interview Maria's friends and family to see if the housekeeper had confided her concerns to anyone. Maria's sister, Carmen Santos, lived in South Phoenix. When Martinez showed up at her small apartment, Carmen broke down in tears. "Maria called me 3 days before she died," Carmen sobbed. "She was scared. She said she saw something at work that could get her fired or worse." "Did she tell you what she saw?" "She said the señora was having an affair with a married man. Maria was thinking about telling the husband because she felt sorry for him." Martinez felt the case solidifying. "Did Maria mention the man's name?" "No, but she said he was dangerous. She saw him with a gun once, and it frightened her." This was the evidence Martinez needed. Maria had threatened to expose the affair, and Victoria and Marcus had killed her to prevent it, but proving it would require catching them in the act or getting one of them to confess. Martinez decided to apply pressure by interviewing both suspects separately. She started with Victoria Ashworth, arriving at the house unannounced on a Friday morning when Richard was at work. Victoria was clearly nervous, fidgeting with her jewelry and avoiding eye contact. "Mrs. Ashworth, we've learned that Maria was concerned about something she witnessed in your home. Do you have any idea what that might have been?" Victoria's face flushed. She was a good worker, but sometimes she misunderstood situations." "What kind of situations?" "I don't know what you mean." Martinez leaned forward. "Mrs. Ashworth, Maria documented her concerns in a journal. She wrote about visitors to your home when your husband was away." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "Maria had no right to spy on me." "So you admit there were visitors?" I need to call my lawyer." Martinez knew she was close. Victoria was clearly guilty, but she needed to connect Marcus Thompson directly to the murder. That afternoon, Martinez visited Thompson's law office. Unlike Victoria, he was calm and confident, the demeanor of a man accustomed to intimidating people. "Detective, I'm happy to help, but I'm not sure what a housekeeper's murder has to do with me," Thompson said, leaning back in his expensive leather chair. "We have evidence that you were familiar with the victim. I may have seen her around the neighborhood. The Ashworths are friends of mine." Martinez studied his reaction carefully. "How close are you with the Ashworth family?" "We're neighbors. We socialize occasionally." "Including private visits to their home when Mr. Ashworth is at work?" Thompson's eyes narrowed. "Detective, I think this conversation is over. If you have specific accusations, make them. Otherwise, I suggest you leave my office." Martinez had pushed as far as she could without more evidence, but Thompson's defensive reaction confirmed her suspicions. The break in the case came from an unexpected source. Richard Ashworth called the police station and requested a meeting with Martinez. They met at a coffee shop away from his home and office. Richard looked exhausted, like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. "Detective, I need to tell you something about my wife," he began hesitantly. Martinez waited, letting him work up the courage to speak. "Victoria has been having an affair with Marcus Thompson. I've known for months, but I was trying to decide how to handle it." "Did Maria know about the affair?" "Yes. She tried to tell me about it the week before she died. She was upset because she felt like I was being betrayed." This was the confirmation Martinez needed. "What exactly did Maria tell you?" "She said Victoria was bringing men to the house when I wasn't home. She felt guilty about keeping the secret and wanted to know if she should tell me directly." "What did you tell her?" Richard looked ashamed. "I told her to mind her own business. I said I didn't want to know about Victoria's private life." "How did Maria react to that?" "She was disappointed in me. She said someone needed to stand up for what was right." Martinez realized that Maria's moral stance had signed her death warrant. Victoria and Marcus couldn't risk her talking to someone else or going to the media. "Mr. Ashworth, I need you to know that your wife and Marcus Thompson are suspects in Maria's murder." Richard's face went pale. "Murder?" I thought. "Victoria said Maria probably got mixed up with the wrong people. Maria was killed because she threatened to expose the affair. We believe your wife and her lover murdered her to keep their secret." The next phase of the investigation required careful coordination. Martinez obtained warrants to search both the Ashworth house and Marcus Thompson's residence. She also arranged for phone taps and continued surveillance. The searches yielded crucial evidence. In Victoria's bedroom, hidden behind designer shoes, investigators found a bloody cloth that matched Maria's DNA. In Marcus Thompson's home office, they discovered a handwritten note in Victoria's handwriting, "M becoming problem. Must handle soon." But the strongest evidence came from the phone taps. 2 days after the searches, Victoria called Marcus in a panic. "They found something!" Victoria's voice was shrill with fear. "We need to talk." "Not on the phone," Marcus replied. "Meet me at the usual place." Martinez followed them to a remote parking lot where their conversation was recorded by long-range surveillance equipment. "This is all your fault," Victoria accused. "You said killing her would solve everything." "Keep your voice down," Marcus hissed. "We stick to the plan. No one can prove anything. They found the cloth with her blood on it. How do we explain that? You're a homeowner. DNA evidence from your housekeeper isn't suspicious. But combined with everything else... Victoria, listen to me. We went through this carefully. Maria was a threat to both of us. She had to be eliminated." The recorded conversation was enough to arrest both suspects. Martinez coordinated with SWAT teams to take them into custody simultaneously to prevent them from destroying additional evidence or fleeing. Victoria was arrested at home while eating breakfast. She collapsed in tears the moment she saw the handcuffs. Marcus was arrested at his law office in front of several clients and colleagues. Unlike Victoria, he maintained his composure and immediately demanded his lawyer. The interrogations revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Victoria eventually confessed. "Marcus said Maria was going to destroy both of our lives," Victoria sobbed. "He said we had to stop her before she talked to Richard or went to the media." "How did you kill her?" Marcus hit her with a golf club in our garage. It was supposed to look like a robbery gone wrong, but there was so much blood. We panicked and just dumped her body." "Whose idea was it to remove her identification?" "Marcus. He said if no one knew who she was, the police wouldn't connect it back to us." Marcus Thompson never confessed, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Phone records showed multiple calls between him and Victoria on the day of the murder. Security footage from a nearby gas station captured his BMW in the area where Maria's body was dumped. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Prosecutors painted a picture of two selfish, wealthy individuals who had murdered an innocent woman to protect their illicit relationship. Victoria testified against Marcus in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her testimony revealed the cold calculation behind the murder. "Marcus said we had 2 choices," Victoria told the jury. "Pay Maria to keep quiet or make sure she never talked to anyone." Why didn't you choose to pay her? Marcus said blackmail never ends. He said Maria would keep demanding money and eventually expose us anyway. The defense argued that Victoria was manipulated by Marcus, but the recorded conversations showed both were willing participants in the conspiracy. Marcus Thompson was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Victoria Ashworth received 25 years for second-degree murder and conspiracy. Her testimony against Marcus had saved her from a life sentence, but she would be nearly 70 when released. The case devastated both families. Richard Ashworth divorced Victoria immediately after her conviction and moved to another state. Marcus Thompson's wife divorced him and changed her and their children's last name to distance themselves from the scandal. Danny Rodriguez, the garbage truck driver who had discovered Maria's body, attended the sentencing hearing. Maria Santos didn't deserve to die just because she tried to do the right thing, Danny told reporters outside the courthouse. Detective Martinez was promoted to sergeant following the successful prosecution. The case had shown her how far people would go to protect their secrets and how the wealthy often believed they were above consequences. Maria Santos was killed because she had integrity, Martinez said during her promotion ceremony. She died standing up for what was right. The Ashworth mansion was sold to pay for legal fees and victim compensation. The new owners demolished the house and built a small park in its place, with a memorial bench dedicated to Maria Santos. Carmen Santos, Maria's sister, received a substantial settlement from the Ashworth estate. She used the money to establish a scholarship fund for immigrant children pursuing education. Carmen said at the scholarship fund launch, "Maria always believed in doing the right thing, even when it was dangerous. This is how we honor her memory." The case became a textbook example of how domestic workers are often vulnerable to violence from their employers. New legislation was passed requiring background checks and regular welfare checks for household employees. Marcus Thompson's law license was permanently revoked, and several of his former cases were reviewed for potential misconduct. The legal community was shocked to learn how a respected attorney had become a cold-blooded killer. Victoria Ashworth served her sentence at a medium-security women's prison. Fellow inmates knew about her case, and she struggled with the reality of prison life after years of luxury and privilege. Detective Martinez continued investigating homicide cases, but the Maria Santos case remained one of her most memorable. It had shown her how quickly ordinary people could become killers when their comfortable lives were threatened. People think murder is committed by strangers in dark alleys, Martinez often told new detectives. But sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones living in the biggest houses with the most to lose. The investigation had taken 4 months from the discovery of Maria's body to the convictions of her killers. Justice had been served, but it couldn't bring back a woman who had died simply for having a conscience. Maria Santos had been 42 years old, a mother of 3 children in Mexico who depended on the money she sent home. Her death had not only taken her life, but had devastated her family's financial security. The case served as a reminder that behind every murder statistic is a real person with dreams, fears, and people who loved them. Maria Santos had died because she believed in right and wrong, and her killers had paid the ultimate price for their selfishness and cruelty. Danny Rodriguez still drove the same garbage route, but he never passed that dumpster without thinking of Maria Santos and the investigation that had brought her killers to justice. Her memory lived on in the lives she had touched and the justice that had finally been served.